How you doing, YouTube? We're actually going to jump into our wildfire news now. I wanted to call it wildfire news because I wanted to start off here with this terrible news here in Canada. Massive wildfires are just getting completely out of control. And then, of course, we're going to jump into some pretty heavy Hawaii coverage. By the way, hello, Mom. She enjoyed the last episode. Everyone be on your best behavior in the chat. I don't want to see any vulgarity in my chat. Okay, my mother is here, please. But she enjoyed the last episode. So hopefully she'll enjoy this one too. But real quick, we're going to jump into this wildfire news, and then we're going to get into the Hawaiian news, which there's quite a lot happening. I mean, the fires are still going. So let's do it.
There are almost 240 wildfires. The capital, Yellowknife, not quite a ghost town, but emptied of 19,000 people, 95% of its population. Thousands of evacuees either flying or driving to temporary shelters as far away as Calgary and Winnipeg. For more on this, we have reached the mayor of Yellowknife, Rebecca Alty. Mayor Alty, yesterday's noon evacuation deadline came and went. How close is Yellowknife to being fully evacuated at this point?
Very close, and I have to send a heartfelt thanks to residents for acting so promptly and swiftly. We anticipate about 1,600 people remain, and those are people who are non-essential. We also have essential staff that are remaining, of course, the firefighting crews, the emergency ops for the city. But we're really encouraging those last 1,600 people, please, the highway is open, get in your vehicle, head out. There's also flights today if you can't make the drive, if you don't have a vehicle, if you've got medical conditions. So really urging people to act now because we want to do this before there's a critical emergency. If there's an emergency, we really want to focus on the emergency at hand and not doing the emergency evacuation. So really encourage folks. I know it's really hard, but please pack your bags, head out.
You know, you mentioned 1,600 people still remain. What message do you want them to know about the urgency of this matter?
I think it can be a challenge. You know, yesterday here in Yellowknife, we had moments of sun. And if I looked out my window, I'd say, it's a regular August day. I'm not under threat. But the fire is approaching. We're working hard to stop it. But let's not get to a situation where we have to do that emergency evacuation. You know, the winds are forecasted to be gusting today. They're forecasting to be gusting towards Yellowknife. So we really want to make sure that folks are out and safe before. And the highway's open right now. For those in Yellowknife, you know that the fire is on that highway or around that highway. It will be smoky conditions, but the highway is open. There's not a risk of the fire right now. But again, situation can change. So really encourage folks to please leave.
Officials have said that the wildfire is expected.
This is not old news, folks. This was 25 minutes ago. So if you are for some reason watching this, and you're in that area, this is not old news.
To reach the outskirts of Yellowknife by the weekend. What's the latest update you can give us from the ground?
We have had some good news in that, you know, on Wednesday it was forecasted to move 5 kilometers. It only moved 1 kilometer closer. The conditions for the water bombers were good over the past few days. So the water bombers have been able to get up and do a lot of that defensive and offensive work and fighting the fires. So some good fire suppression has happened. But again, Mother Nature, you know, we look at the forecast and we weren't even forecasted to get rain last night, and we did, but we've been forecasted to get rain and we haven't. So Mother Nature is always difficult to predict. But, you know, we're continuing to do everything in our power to get the protections in place.
What would you say your residents need the most right now in terms of support? Obviously, such a difficult time to have to just pick up and leave. What would you say they need the most?
Right now, I'm sure residents would appreciate hearing from family and friends. It's a difficult time. It's a stressful time. leaving your home, your belongings, all those memories. So please reach out, give them a hand. A big thanks to all the communities across Alberta: Calgary, Fox Creek, Lac La Biche, Red Deer, Valley View, Whitecourt, Edmonton. Winnipeg's also now an evacuation center. Thanks to all the businesses. I was just seeing some footage of the kids getting to go to TELUS Science World for free. Really appreciate all those supports to families.
And how has the communication been between you and your provincial and federal counterparts? What have the conversations been at this point?
Yeah, we have our Territorial Emergency Management Committee that the city's an active participant, the federal government's through the military's active. So we're all working together through that Territorial Emergency Management Committee. And so really working together to fight the fires, to work on the evacuation. And then the next step is the reentry plan. That's not to say that we're there yet. However, the planning will begin so that when the time comes and it's safe to return, we'll be ready to implement it as soon as possible.
Well, Mayor Alty, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your time. We do hope that, we will be talking about reentry at some point for all of those residents who've had to leave. So thanks again. That's Mayor of Yellowknife, Rebecca Alty.
So there you go. Residents of Yellowknife, pay attention. Of course, I'm sure they're not watching Twitch. I'm sure they're running for their lives. Just real over here, adding a little bit to the wildfire news here. Just, pointing out that the number of wildfires in Russia increased, but not because of climate change. It's because of Chinese cutting it down and covering the tracks. The amount of wood cutting they're doing in Taiga is huge. So yeah, clear cutting areas can create all kinds of problems, and that's one problem that other countries have had with Chinese companies, is that they come in, hyper exploit the area, pollute. They don't care. It's not their home. They don't care. They'll deal with everything in court after the fact. So that's not new for Chinese companies in other countries. Of course, in their own country, pollution is a pretty bad problem anyway. So there you go. Now we're going to hop into our Hawaii wildfire coverage. This was from yesterday. So apparently this is West Kelowna. Kelowna? I'm sorry, Mom. And Drea. Sorry about that. But yeah, really terrible footage here. Not going to dwell on that too long. We got a lot of news clips I wanted to show here. A couple different angles I wanted to address here. Local residents, what's going to happen after this is done, what's happening right now in terms of the wildfires. How many more people, unfortunately, are getting pulled out of this wreckage. The number has reached over 100, unfortunately, and that number is probably going to rise at least a little bit. A little bit while longer. That number is going to trickle up higher. Skies were red in Canada last night from the fires in certain parts of Canada, not for me. But we do have all of our windows and everything closed today because of an air quality warning. All right, so let's jump into it. Hawaii wildfires, latest new clue in what sparked the fire. So there's been a lot of speculation on, okay, how did this actually start? And we're also going to get into the lack of preventative measures. There were apparently 80 alarms and sirens that were installed that were not used. That, there was no announcement, no warning blasted over these 80 plus sirens that were installed across this area. So I have an interview with the mayor, who is maybe going to be held accountable. We'll see. It's a CNN interview, so we'll see about that.
As the search for victims continue, new clues today about what sparked the Maui wildfire and President Biden's message to Hawaiians ahead of his visit there next week. Melissa Don reports from Maui.
New video raising questions about the cause of the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. This security camera captures what could be an early trigger.
We got there and it's like infernal. I mean, winds gusting to 50 to 70 miles an hour. Ambers are flying over.
Wow. A day earlier, on August 7th, a witness describes a flash that might be a tree falling on a power line.
It's windy, and then there's a flash, and I think that's when a tree's falling on a power line. The power goes out.
By 5 p.m. the next day, Lahaina's historic Front Street up in flames.
We're like in the car, and a whole tree is on fire, and we're just like, I was like, oh my God, we're gonna die.
The power company saying they are still investigating what triggered the fire, adding the cause has not been determined. More than 100 killed, hundreds more still unaccounted for, including 28-year-old Paul Makai Torres Lozano, missing since last Tuesday.
I want to hang on to the hope that he's alive.
With the flames now extinguished, residents assessing the damage, so many left with nothing. Groups across Maui now mobilizing supplies as the cleanup effort begins.
We're going to go out and make sure our family's okay and deliver goods to everybody.
FEMA, Red Cross, and the military all on the ground.
I can tell you it's going to be a long and costly recovery.
President Biden vowing to keep the help coming.
We'll be with you for as long as it takes, I promise you.
On Monday, the president and first lady have plans to visit Maui. FEMA has promised full support for those who have lost everything, urging those survivors to sign up for aid. Melissa Adan, ABC News, Maui.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, he will. Trust Biden? No. Nope. I guess we kind of went over this, but this is I don't really buy the right wing Sleepy Joe argument either. Let's not get that twisted. I don't think he wears diapers like Donald Trump does. Okay. I think he's an old man, and it's hard to read teleprompters at the same speed and be at the same speed, when you're that old. But I think his policy failures are not because he's old and he doesn't get it. His policy failures are his because he's a dyed-in-the-wool neoliberal, and he believes in these ancient, crusty-ass neoliberal policies that, from his perspective, have served him quite well throughout his career. So no, Joe Biden isn't gonna pull it off. Yeah, initially he's gonna, but it's the support's gonna trickle away, right? What did Obama do for Katrina victims? Okay, Katrina happened during Bush's presidency, but what did Obama? I mean, yeah, I'm sure he threw him some bones. I'm sure he threw him a couple bones, but did he rebuild the Ninth Ward? Not really. But anyway, let's get some more details about what caused this fire.
Wildfires scorching Hawaii's Maui and Big Islands have killed dozens of people, left behind smoldering ruins, and forced thousands of residents and tourists to flee. On Friday, the state's governor called it the worst natural disaster to ever hit Hawaii.
Pretty bad.
But how did these fires become so devastating? The cause of the blazes was still not clear days after they began. The fires have hit large parts of Lahaina, a beach resort city of about 13,000 people on northwestern Maui, especially hard. It sits in the relative middle of the 8 main islands that make up Hawaii's archipelago. What experts do know is that
I don't, thank you for Googling it. And go ahead and put the link to what you found in the chat there. I'm not saying Obama didn't throw Katrina some bones. I'm sure he did. But that's the problem with neoliberals. Band-aid solutions, not real solutions. And when they're running for office, what do they say? We fixed it. We fixed it. These other problems, we're guaranteed to fix it if you vote for us. And then what happens when we get him into office? Oh, him and Holland. Oh, I don't know. Means test this, means test that. Let's take single-payer health care off the table. Remember that during the Obama era? oh, we're going to talk about single payer health care as soon as you make me president and give me a supermajority. We do just that. We give him the presidency and a supermajority. Oh, we can't do single payer health care. Let's be real, guys. That's not very realistic. There has to be a profit motive to health care, said Obama. He didn't really say that, but that's what he was arguing for.
Conditions were ripe for wildfires there.
But what I said stands, right? Sure, he threw Katrina victims some bones, but did he really go in there and provide? Because what did Biden say? I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to do everything I can. They say that all the time. The fuck you are, Obama, Biden. Why even lie to us? That's my problem. Yes, technically better than the right wing, who would just, completely abandon these areas. So I'm not, please don't get it twisted if you're watching too much MSNBC and you think I'm a Republican. I acknowledge that Obama and Biden do more than the right wing fascists when it comes to situations like this. But I'm not going to be, pissed on my head and allow Biden to call it rain. He's not going to do everything that he can to help victims in Hawaii. Is he going to pull out all the stops to prevent real estate speculators and other corporations who are going to go into Lahaina and completely exploit the whole situation? Because we're going to get into that later. Or is Biden going to sit around and just like kind of ignore what corporate real estate speculators are going to do to Lahaina, buying up property on pennies on the dollar? Hundreds of people are going to be forced to move and never be able to move back. Okay. Is Biden going to do anything about that? I'd bet $10,000. Anyone in the chat, I'll bet you $10,000 Biden's not going to do jack shit about the billion-dollar companies that are already contacting victims from Lahaina. Hey, you want to sell your property? Hey, you want to sell that plot of land? Hey, you want to sell that plot of land? Hey, oh yeah, hey, I know you're at your father's funeral, but would you sell your plot of land over here? Oh yeah, it's okay. You can just step out of the funeral home there real quick. We have a talk. Yeah, it's okay. So anyway, you want to sell that plot of land? So they're already doing this. Is Biden going to do shit about that? I'm going to do everything I can. Just stop with a jerk-off session, okay? Yeah, he's going to throw him some bones, but it's not going to be good enough. And that's the problem with neoliberal leadership, right? And they say, well, that's good enough because the alternative is fascism. So it's good enough. Our milquetoast corporatism is good enough because the alternative is, Donald Trump. You don't want that. So you're just going to have to deal with milquetoast corporatism. Sorry, not sorry. I'm going to pretend like it's West Wing. It's intolerable. There's billions of dollars sitting in banks that could be helping people. There's laws and rules that could be passed that could prevent the exploitation of innocent people to allow them to get their home back. There's all kinds of things that Biden could do that he isn't going to do. So when Biden says, I'm going to do everything I can, I don't fucking believe him.
Or they sparked off on Tuesday.
Maui was in a D1, D2 severe drought for the season, and the risk for large fire potential was higher there than it was in California.
That's San Jose State University meteorology professor Craig Clements. The National Weather Service had also issued warnings for the Hawaiian Islands for high winds and dry weather. Add to that the unusually high temperatures this summer, in part due to climate change, in part due to the El Nino warming event.
So these conditions all lined up with kind of a classic fire weather situation. It just so happened that there was ignition during the high wind event, allowing a very fast spreading fire to burn into the community towards the coast.
Welcome back, Clutch, and welcome back, Homeless Bag. Thank you for that follow, Homeless Bag.
U.S. weather officials say winds from Hurricane Dora have fanned the flames across the U.S. state, coming from hundreds of miles southwest of the Hawaiian Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Separately, a low-pressure system to the west near Japan has also contributed to sustained high winds. These all become a serious problem when they reach Maui's very steep mountain range.
The winds were coming from the northeast, and they were very strong winds. They were descending, going up and over the mountain range and descending what we call the lee side. And when that happens, you get acceleration near the surface.
Wow.
And so you get
I've never seen meteorological video like this where you can see, like, is this like the wind shear? What is this? Man, the tech is so good. Are these clouds?
These faster winds on the downslope side or the lee side of the.
So it's on the bottom of here, it says geocolor plus fire temperature.
The mountain range.
Dry vegetation is also a contributing factor. Here's Oregon State University professor Erica Fleischman. She's also the director of the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute.
You can think of it as plants being thirstier, so plants use more water when the air temperature is higher. So the water that is present tends to disappear more rapidly.
It dries up quicker.
Fueling that problem, the spread of flammable non-native grasses brought in from around the world.
So this is an interesting thing, and Hawaii is actually quite a stickler, and it's, you know, and I can see why now. I mean, they have a major problem on the islands with invasive species of animals and invasive species of plants that were brought in by colonists. Sorry, they weren't brought in by islanders. They weren't brought in by native folks. They were brought in by colonists. I think one famous example is there's deer running around Hawaii, and they were brought there because some rich guy. Oh, okay, you. They were brought in because some rich guy wanted to hunt deer, so he brought in some deer, and so now Hawaiians have to deal with a menace, deer everywhere. They don't belong there. They all of them need to go. Totally invasive species. So thanks a lot, some white guy. Thanks a lot. Is this the laser that Biden tested it? Okay, so Mr. Sniper over here. I saw videos about this, and I'm not going to cover this, but the conspiracy theorists are out in full force trying to say that the fire was started by space lasers or some fucking, some bullshit. No, he's got proof. He's got proofs. Yeah, just like all the other ones. You got it, guys. You nailed it. You nailed it. You're nailing it.
In areas of former farmland and forest, that's created large amounts of small, easily ignited materials that increase the risk and severity
Microwave
of fire.
Weapon, huh?
But what about the next big fire?
All right.
Hawaiian officials say it will take several years and billions of dollars to rebuild the damage wrought by these fires. But scientists say human-caused climate change, driven by fossil fuel use, is increasing the frequency and intensity of such extreme weather events. Fleischman, the Oregon State professor, says there are ways to limit the risks to homes and buildings, though it's not always easy or cheap.
So many structures ignite because sparks moving far in front of the fire front get into the ventilation system of the building.
We heard
and
this.
There are ways to construct buildings so that the ventilation systems, it's less easy for the ventilation systems to take up sparks. You can have fire-resistant roofs. You can be doing different things with
we heard
decks,
this
with
one
materials
before.
next to structures. So, I mean, there are possibilities for
Sniper,
saying
you got it, man.
a wildfire is likely to happen.
No, you nailed it. Yeah, no, on your keen observation, I'm sure you're an expert in this field of identifying fires and how they work, and I'm sure that's your field of expertise. So when you say, "Oh, there's something suspicious about that," I'm willing to trust your opinion, because it's not like you're just some jackass running around the internet pretending like you have some kind of definitive proof, or pretending like you're an expert in some way, right? It's not like you're just a complete jackass just making shit up right as you go along, hopping from channel to channel. Oh, what if this, what if that? Oh, I'm cool. That's no way that would happen
in the future, but perhaps buildings don't burn down. Perhaps people can protect themselves better from smoke.
No, and now we're going to bring Ukraine into this. Now we're going to, what about the space laser theory with complaints about money going to Ukraine? Buddy, you got it all figured out. You know, there's a certain amount of skill that people need to gaslight properly. And I think there's a lot of like gaslight amateurs running around the internet thinking they're clever. Oh, it's Orange Gamer Cat. Here you go, Orange Gamer Cat. Welcome back, Orange Gamer Cat. Real quick, folks, we're going to have to do a little interlude here. Sorry to interrupt, but big news. I just got my shipment of Garbage Fuel. Garbage Fuel, the #1 drink-based company in the world. Garbage Fuel. Made from 100% garbage juice. Pick yourself up some Garbage Fuel today. You never know what you're going to drink. You never know what dumpster we get our juice from. Garbage is, of course, Garbage Fuel is made from 100% garbage juice. I'm going to drink some today. I love this. I love it. It's my favorite drink. Get that straw out of here. We're going to have a nice, healthy sip of Garbage Fuel. Oh, we're not doing that one, folks. Wait a minute. I think I got a hair. Yep, there's hair. Yep. I got one with hair. I got one with hair this time. Well, that's all right. That's all right. You know, you never know what you're going to get. Random dumpsters. Thank you so much, Garbage Fuel, the #1 drink mix company in the world, for sponsoring today's Garbage Fuel segment. Garbage Fuel, the #1 drink mix company in the world. Made from 100% garbage juice. Drink it today. Delicious. Delicious. Thank you so much, Garbage Fuel. All right, moving on. Best news program on Twitch, folks.
I was at work, and from where I work, I watched my town burn.
Trixie Nuesca Garner was at work in the town above Lahaina when the fires broke out last week. She's from the island, so like others here, she knew this time was different.
Nothing could have prepared you for what happened that 24 hours. Nothing.
Her mum, dad and daughter were at home watching the skies when the realization hit they had to escape, and fast.
I took my granddaughter with me to go and look at the smoke. It was so huge and black, but we heard popping sounds. So it was, let's get out of here.
They joined the trail of cars leaving town, desperately trying to call each other as the fire was fast approaching.
We can see the goal in the sky, but the wind it shaked our whole cars. It's dark, people are looking for shelter. You know how much I don't want to remember that night? I don't think I'll ever forget.
Hey, Mr. Sniper, can you show me any proof whatsoever that you were bitching about money going to any other country before the right wing weaponized, weaponized this whole Ukrainian war situation for a pathetic propaganda? Right? Republican right wingers are anti-war now. Didn't you hear? Can you show me any proof that you gave a shit about money going to any other country for military means before this started happening?
The family eventually met up, aunts, uncles and cousins together, but one family member was missing.
But we were still waiting for, I have one more brother. We hadn't heard from him.
The rest is now all too painful history. The fire gathered speed with 80-mile-an-hour winds, and in a matter of hours, it tore through Lahaina.
And isn't this cute? The bad actor who came in talking about fucking space lasers starting this is now trying to have a legitimate conversation about geopolitics and war funding, and everyone in the chat is just soaking it up. I see why bad actors float around, because people can't help themselves. They have to reply to their stupidity, and it works. It works. The space lasers guy is now trying to tell you what is proper geopolitical policy, guys, and you're all fighting with him.
Razing the historic seaside town to the ground. They were safe, but Charmaine's brother David hadn't made it out.
He would never
tragic.
leave or turn his back. He might have been with the hose trying to fight the fire himself.
When he died.
He wasn't one to walk away or
Exactly,
give up.
Tisreal. Exactly.
He wasn't one to
Tisreal,
run.
exactly.
Trixie returned to their home in Lahaina the next day. She didn't see her uncle's body, but they've since been told he was recovered on what's left of their home.
Oh, that's
But
so
I have the guilt
sad.
that I wasn't with my family
That's so
to
sad.
be able to convince my uncle to leave.
God, that's
Trixie said nothing could prepare her for what she saw.
The world can see the videos and the pictures, and unless you've gone back to really see it and feel it, would you be able to describe it yourself?
Yeah.
It's
Great point, Rebel Phoenix.
it's
by the way.
devastating.
Yeah.
The
100%.
town that was my home, that was a home for many, they lost everything. Loved ones. Material things can be replaced in time, but the sentimental meanings of those material things sometimes cannot be replaced.
No, and this is why I'm talking about Joe Biden, who's not going to do anything about the real estate speculators that are going to transform this area into a yuppie playground. Okay, filled with a bunch of nouveau riche millionaire white people. Okay, and the locals that live there are not going to get their opportunity to come back.
You can't replace your loved ones.
It will take weeks or even months to recover all those lost in the fires. In the meantime, the pain is being replaced with frustration and fear that in the effort to rebuild, big multi-billion-dollar corporations will move in and local Hawaiians will get left behind. A tension that's simmered here for years.
Well, earlier I spoke to Kanyela Ing, who used to represent...
Okay, so I unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get into the rest of this portion of this one because this fella has a different interview that I'm going to show from a different news outlet. So we're just going to move on to the next segment here. Wanted to show you this. So this is I'm sorry, not the mayor, what I was talking about earlier. This is a Hawaiian senator. Question on the 80 sirens that didn't activate in Maui. I'm trying to manage my bung. But no, we'll see. This is funny. This is CNN pretending like it's going to, you know what, hold a government official accountable. Oh, CNN. Oh, that's adorable. All right, but let's see CNN emulate what real journalists do every single day.
Through Maui this week is now the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than 100 years, officials said last night, with at least 93 people dead, and that figure is tragically expected to only grow as emergency workers uncover more scenes of horror, lines of abandoned charred cars that trace the fury of the flames, fanned by the winds of a hurricane hundreds of miles away. Homes reduced to ash as people ran for their lives, some of them running into the sea, where some floated for hours, battling fumes and watching their city burn. The ocean off Lahaina, Hawaii, will also need to be dredged for bodies, one leader said. And as those who recover asked desperately for help and information, top officials say they are still battling dangerous circumstances on the ground and pledged to get Hawaii all the resources it needs to recover and to investigate why the island of Maui was not more prepared for this disaster. Joining us now live from Hawaii, Senator Mazie Hirono, a Democrat who spent yesterday surveying the damage on the island of Maui with the governor and the director of FEMA. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry it's under these tragic circumstances. You toured the devastation firsthand yesterday. What did you see? And what did you hear from people on the ground?
The entire historic town of Lahaina burned to the ground. And the images of cars totally they have been demolished. And we saw a group of cars near the ocean, and it's quite clear that the occupants of those cars probably fled into the ocean. And I was told that at least 12 people were rescued from the ocean. And
they drove into the ocean.
To see all of these charred, totally demolished cars. But the scenes of devastations will stay with me, and that is why I really thank the president for declaring an emergency declaration within hours of being asked to do that by the state of Hawaii. And I was there with the family of federal agencies, including the administrator of FEMA, SBA, U.S. Fire, and the 150 FEMA people are there. They brought in, sadly, cadaver dogs to continue the search.
What is it like for you on a personal level and on an emotional level to see this kind of horrific destruction and loss of life in your beloved home state?
I'm super excited. I'm totally elated. I think it's really great. I mean, what the fuck we expect to hear from, come on, let's get to the real part of the interview here.
Many of us have stayed in
sped
Lahaina.
up.
I did too, and it is an iconic town, and so many people went there because it's very, very historic. It was the seat of the monarchy, the capital of the monarchy, and there were many historic buildings, including, I have to say, this massive banyan tree, 150 years old, the oldest banyan tree in the country, and it is, my hope is that it will be restored. But very importantly, yes, as I said yesterday, we are in a period of mourning and loss as we search for more people who are still unaccounted for. Some of them have been found in the shelters. I visited one.
So yeah, about your total failure to prevent something like this from happening. Could we talk about that one, please?
With some 400 residents sleeping on cots, and we are going to need to provide them with short-term and long-term housing. But we are all there en masse to do that.
Ordinary Hawaii residents have been mobilizing to support the victims of these fires, and as you note, FEMA is there and other government agencies. My colleague Bill Weir is reporting from Maui, and he's hearing from people there who are still desperate for more help from the government, people who are wondering, where's the Navy, where's the Army, why isn't the military flooding into the region, where are the hospital ships, et cetera. Are you satisfied that everything possible is being done to ensure these Hawaiians are getting all the help that they need from the government?
I can understand why there is frustration because, as I say, we are in a period of shock and loss. From what I can see, the government agencies are there. They are going to set up areas where people can come and get their driver's license restored, all of those kinds of things. But yes, they are going to need a lot of help. And from what I saw, there is a pledge. President Biden called me directly to pledge his support because we know that recovery will be long and the resources will be necessary. I have also heard from my Senate colleagues, Chuck Schumer and others pledging their support. Recovery will be take a lot of resources, and the focus right now is truly on the recovery.
CNN
there are
sucks.
still people
I mean,
who
CNN sucks. CNN's just really bad at this.
Are unaccounted for. They need to be identified. There is a call for people to come in to provide DNA. So we are in the
redundant information. We don't need information about this from you. What we want is information about why you failed to do your job. That's what I want.
I would say the initial phases, but we're going to do everything we can to provide the kind of support that people will need.
We're also hearing from Hawaiians questions about how this could have happened.
Here we go.
There was a statewide assessment released last year saying that the threat to Hawaii residents from wildfires was low. A 2021 Maui report on wildfire prevention efforts found that the...
What do you think she's going to do? I don't think she's going to do a what about. I think she's going to do the classic acknowledge, sympathize, and pivot away from the topic at hand, right? So she's going to acknowledge, like in some way she's going to acknowledge the failures, talk about how, remorseful she is, and then pivot away from discussion about her failures. Let's see what we got here.
County Fire Department had no actual plan for preventing fires. And then I'm sure, as you've heard personally, many Maui residents say they didn't receive any official warnings before it was too late. And state officials are acknowledging that none of the 80 warning sirens on Maui were ever activated. Why do you think officials were so unprepared for this?
I'm not going to make any excuses for this
acknowledge it. Yep, you got to acknowledge it.
Tragedy, but the Attorney General has launched a review of what happened with those sirens and some of the other actions that were taken. So that is happening. And there will be time enough, I would say, for those kinds of reviews and investigations to occur.
Okay, so now isn't the time to have a discussion about how bad I am at my job, okay?
But we are really focused, as far as I'm concerned, on the need for rescue.
There it is, and sympathize with victims. And this is part of the pivot. In 30 seconds, we're going to be talking nothing about culpability and and making a politician needs to do their job. We're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the plan on hand, moving forward. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's classic, guys. And what is Jake Tapper going to do? He's going to let her do it.
And well, the location of we know, sadly, more bodies.
There
and
it
as
is.
I talk with the people who
There
are
it
at
is.
this large place where the residents.
Into the story, and see, not even 30 seconds later, we're not talking about the question, right? Because the question is, hey, how come these sirens didn't work? How come you guys aren't doing your job? How come your government is seemingly completely unprepared for this happening? We're not talking about that. Now we're talking about it. Now it's story time. Took her less than 15 seconds to do that, by the way, guys.
Were that yes, we're going to need to provide a lot of support, and that is why I'm asking for and I expect to receive bipartisan support for additional funds that will enable us to recover. That recovery is going to take time. It is not going to be overnight.
Jake
by
Tapper
any means.
is so bad
it will
at
take
this.
years. This is an entire town that has burned to the ground. Some 11,000 residents live there, and the tourists who were there, thousands, were evacuated to Oahu mainly.
I need to remind you, this is her response to why the 80 sirens did not go off.
And the airlines really stepped up to lower their fees, and the hotels have also stepped up to provide lodging for our visitors. So I think that we are doing a lot in order to provide the kind of support we need to be providing, but there will always be the call for more. And my hope and expectation is that all of that will come.
Experts warn that extreme disasters such as this one are only becoming more common because climate change is fueling stronger storms, hotter temperatures, more widespread droughts. And earlier this week, President Biden incorrectly claimed he had already declared a climate emergency, which would give him additional powers to combat the climate crisis.
That's
Given
awkward.
what you're seeing on the ground, do you want President Biden to actually declare a climate emergency?
No. I hate money for this. I don't want stuff. I hate CNN, man, and they're just going to let her talk. Okay. For the sake of completeness, let's let her finish this. But, I mean, look at the headline. Hawaii senator questioned on the 80 sirens that didn't activate in Maui. Technically true. Technically true. The woman didn't say the word siren once in her response to that question. And it took, over 5 minutes to get to the question. And Jake Tapper lets her non sequitur response. Jake Tapper, on to the next thing. It's just this. If you're wondering why, such a mediocre person can get away with being mediocre, not representing her constituents, failing in her job, and then continuing to keep her job as if she has no responsibility. If you're wondering how people like this get away with it, it's because of people like this. Jake fucking Tapper. That what you saw there is a masterclass in how not to hold a politician accountable for failing to do their job properly. She's not the wrong person to ask. Those are her constituents. She leaves a little piece of paper on their door every election season that says, "Vote for me. I'm going to make your life better." She puts a little paper in their mailbox or on their front door, so with a big smiley picture. I'm your senator. I'm your senator. I represent you. Shoot, I'm basically part of your family. She does that every election season. And now she's not responsible. So now she's not responsible. I'm not, over here defending. I'm not saying that she's like the queen of Hawaii and she's making all the rules. But what we saw here was a masterclass in removing any responsibility or accountability. Oh, they're on it. They're on it. Oh, yeah, what about those 80 sirens that didn't go off? Oh, I'm going to tell you a story about sad stuff. I'm not saying, obviously, she's part of a grander system, right? But this is just the media desperately hoping for a heck of a job brownie moment. Okay. Biden criticized for his response to Hawaii wildfires, and rightfully so. Let's dig into it. This is from CBC.
At the U.S. government's response, Benji Heyer joins us from Washington. Benji, we often hear criticism of government in the immediate aftermath of a disaster. Is it any different this time?
The people have a right to blame their representatives at every level of government for the failures that they experience every single day, regardless of how connected that person is actually to policy making, specifically on emergency management. That's just how it works. And I'm tired of government officials, being given a break for skirting responsibility. If that person is not responsible in any way for emergency management, then they should feel comfortable calling out the departments that are, instead of coddling them and protecting them. So no. Yeah, this knee-jerk defense I see in my comments section for milquetoast neoliberal politicians who failed to do their job. Oh, you can't blame her for this. You can't blame her for that. Oh, she wasn't in charge of this. Then she should be holding the departments that are in charge of it accountable. And I didn't hear that either.
Well, Renee, let's start with what the White House is saying. In a statement late on Monday, they wrote that federal agencies are continuing to support communities. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, known as FEMA, based here in Washington, D.C., is now on the ground with 300 or so of its workers. And their role isn't to be first on the scene, but to assist local responders. And that's the priority for them, helping provide the bare essentials, meals, water, blankets, that, just days ago, locals would have took for granted. In the
Woke Patriot, yes, that is yes. When the failures are most glaring, when the failures are screaming us in the face, yes, that is the time to criticize recovery efforts. How effective has criticizing Katrina been after the fact?
The coming days, the federal government says that it will be establishing recovery centres where survivors can speak to specialists, get access to other federal resources, and then down the line there'll be those assessments over funding to rehouse or relocate. This, however, is an almighty and uphill task. If you look at the geography alone, Hawaii's closer to parts of East Asia than it is to Washington, D.C. Flights there from the west of the U.S. take hours. Anything by ship could take days. And by FEMA's own admission, getting anything anywhere around Hawaii, even on a good day, is a challenge. Nonetheless, Joe Biden has faced criticism personally from political opponents for his own response, having until recently remained relatively silent about the wildfires' impact, despite, as you highlighted, the increasing death toll. And when returning from a beach in Delaware a few days ago, for example, a reporter asked him if he would comment, and he replied, according to that reporter, no comment. He did, however, address the disaster directly on Tuesday. He says that he and the First Lady plan to visit the island.
My wife Jill and I are going to travel to Hawaii as soon as we can. That's what I've been talking to the governor about. I don't want to get in the way. I've been to too many disaster areas.
You bringing some fucking food with you, dude?
But I want to go, make sure we got everything they need. Want to be
really? Is that what you're going to do? Supervise it, Joe? God. Oh, my God.
Sure we don't disrupt the ongoing recovery efforts.
That pledge, though, is not enough for some. Former President Donald Trump, who is running, of course, for the White House again, has been back in the news for other reasons, slamming his potential rival, calling Biden's response horrible and unacceptable. The White House insists that Joe Biden remains deeply concerned about the situation.
Now, Benji, the federal disaster response includes help identifying the victims. Officials in Hawaii warn that is going to take some time. What do we know about what is happening there?
I love how Trump isn't even in office and he's almost in jail, but he's still basically the face and voice of the entire right wing in the United States according to CBC. I find that really, really funny.
That's right. This task of identifying victims is inching forward. Officials say they've collected DNA samples from dozens of people now whose relatives are missing. You know, hundreds are still missing in this disaster, but only a handful, 4 of the dead, have been officially identified so far. In short, this is a really difficult process.
Chances of finding good DNA samples might be a really hard thing to do. Also, once you identify a victim and you have reference samples from their family, the DNA process alone is very time consuming and very tedious. You don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to misidentify someone.
And this is the devastating reality. The island's police chief says many of the bodies are so badly charred and burnt that they're simply unrecognizable. It means that confirmation for those grieving families could take a while longer.
All right, thanks, Benji. That's Benji Heyer in Washington.
Thank you, Benji. He's a cutie. Here's some, I mean, this is really, just trigger warning here. You're going to hear a woman in a lot of distress. And this video is very important to be seen and heard, but it is distressing. And if you're not in the mood for a distressing video, then just a heads up. This woman did survive. I think everyone survived. But we just heard, we just heard this woman say, yeah, I think people were so afraid they drove into the ocean. They just off the road, boosh, into the ocean. And here you can see why. It's only a matter of time before your tires melt. You don't have a lot of time on tires that are doing this. And then, if your tires melt, how mobile are you? And, and then your car stops moving and the flames are close, panic sets in. So it all makes perfect sense why, if I saw that water, I'd be getting out of the car instead of trying to drive further into the unknown, because you just don't know. It's smoke and fire everywhere. You can't see 2 feet in front of your face. It's getting really hot. It's getting really, really hot. So there's a lot of things happening all at once, and I could totally understand why people would bail out of their car and jump in the ocean or just drive straight into the ocean. So here's the video.
Jesus, please help us. This morning, as new videos show the inferno that engulfed Lahaina and how residents spent hours in the ocean to survive, anger is growing. How did the nation's deadliest wildfire happen with no warning?
Did you get any type of alert?
No. 73-year-old Elizabeth Kahani.
So, that senator had an opportunity to explain to this woman why those sirens didn't go off in that Jake Tapper CNN interview. She utterly failed this woman. And like I said before, do you think this woman receives a little slip in the mail from that woman on CNN, from that senator on CNN that says, vote for me? Vote for me? I don't know. I feel like they should have better responses than bullshit, right? But I guess politics has become so cynical that we just we're just okay with non-answers from our elected officials, and we're just not going to hold them to that standard anymore of providing substantive answers. They can just rattle off some nonsense and Jake Tapper doesn't hold her to account. I just think it's kind of funny because this woman probably is asked to vote for her.
Grandmother says she was so scared when she escaped, she didn't realize her face and arm were burned.
Wow.
Firefighters rescued her, treating her wounds, but her brother, Rodolfo Rocutan, is still missing. She's pleading for any word from him.
I'm so worried about everybody. Hopefully, you're still alive.
The search for the missing and dead is just getting started. Canine cadaver dogs arriving over the weekend and police announcing just 3% of Lahaina has been searched.
Are you saying we're just at the beginning of this disaster?
So for the first few days, we had done searches in the streets and the cars that were in the area, but we couldn't enter any structures. I know everybody, what's that final number? It's going to take us a while to get there.
More than 2,700 structures have been destroyed, most of them homes. Residents desperate to get back.
They're not moving fast enough.
Yeah, they're not.
It's been too long. It's been 6 days.
The King family lost their home. Their kids rescued by their friend and neighbor, Rafa Ochoa. They are all staying together with friends. 3 families under one roof. And he's angry at local leaders.
Got a bunch of trading cards.
No. Where were you guys to try and get us out, evacuate us? No. We're mad. We're mad. No, we didn't just lose our homes. We lost our town.
The cause of the...
So go ahead and, in your mind, cue the response that we heard from that senator to Jake Tapper's question about her failure and the government's failure to have working sirens. Have that queued up and go ahead and play that in your mind. Play that response that she gave Jake Tapper, right? And just pretend that it was this guy that asked her that question. Where were you? Where were you? Oh, yeah, some bullshit for 5 seconds ago. We acknowledge that we're wrong anyway.
To try and get us out, evacuate us. No.
We got to hold these people accountable and stop making excuses for them.
We're mad. We're mad. No, we didn't just lose our homes. We lost our town.
The cause of the blaze is still under investigation. Videos shot from the water show both how bad the fire was, but also how strong the wind was blowing.
We're in the ocean.
19-year-old Noah Tompkinson and his 13-year-old brother Milo spent hours in the water, along with their mother, escaping the flames.
It's all right.
At one point, their mother started to get cold.
We kind of like all huddled around her and just wanted to like keep her warm. Has your mom talked to you guys and thanked you for being by her side? We didn't save her, she also saved us. If any of us were alone, I don't know if we would have made it.
So I thought the video, the distressing video that I was describing was going to be played here because that is what this frame is from.
Jesus, please help us.
Okay. They did play this part, but there's a longer version of this video that I thought they were going to play, but they did not. But anyway, more evidence of on the ground failures of the government. And yeah, I'm speaking generally. And now I need to speak specifically about the fucking specific politicians and government officials in charge. Really? We're this cynical? I mean, what happened to just civilians demanding accountability and politicians listening? Right? Oh yeah, well, you're not even asking the right politician. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. Video believed to be the sighting of the first initial spark of the Maui wildfire. So quite a... I mean, they're just going to... Okay, where's the initial spark? Okay, here we go. Let's get to that. It's only a 2-minute thing. Let's watch the whole thing. Come on.
U.S. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill are heading to Hawaii Monday to survey the devastation from the deadly wildfires that destroyed much of Lahaina and killed more than 100 people. But tonight we're getting a first look at video believed to show the initial sparks that led to the disaster. CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports.
The road through Lahaina has reopened, though the path forward for this decimated town remains a heartbreaking journey.
This is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is apocalyptic. It's terrible.
With President Joe Biden set to arrive in Maui on Monday, FEMA confirming today that cadaver dogs on the ground are struggling in the heat and hazardous terrain to locate those who perished in the flames.
which is why we are sending in additional dogs.
This is live right across the street from my house.
Multiple new videos show that downed power lines may have sparked the whole tragedy.
Freaking power line just went down.
Shane True walked out of his Lahaina home at dawn last week, just as a wooden pole snapped, igniting the brush in a flash.
Like somebody lit a fuse for a firework, and it just followed a straight line.
With a garden hose in hand, True says construction companies brought their water tankers to assist.
They tried like hell. I was just about to say, like, how come he's like filming this? Is he going to do anything about it? But no, there's just nothing you could do, but he tried like hell. Good for him. Props. I'm sure he had family and loved ones that he had to get the hell out of there. He was basically on the front line.
We thought it was all contained, and then from there just went ahead about our day, thinking that it was all done.
The soon-to-be inferno was far from over. This security video shows the flash of a downed power line inland from Lahaina. At least 3 class action lawsuits.
So this is crazy footage. We showed this last time, but this is in a hotel. They're in the hotel pool, and this is the hotel burning around them.
Have been filed against Hawaiian Electric, alleging that if they'd de-electrified the system, it would have saved lives.
So wow, they didn't even have a fire prevention system that turns off the electricity. Wow.
The rate of this tragedy is still growing as we learn how some died. Franklin Trejos was found in his car, draped over his golden retriever, Sam.
She was just saying she couldn't breathe. She couldn't breathe.
On a family vacation, T. Dang thought her daughter may have succumbed to the smoke.
We kept shaking her. We kept telling, I'm calling her name, calling her name.
Unable to swim, the family of 5 were forced from their burning car and into the ocean. They all survived after spending 4 hours in the choppy Pacific waters.
Wow. Hawaiian people, they gave us hope. They saved us. Without them, we would not be alive.
The state's utility company says it's still investigating the cause of the fire, as are the FBI and the Attorney General.
Don't worry, Jake Tapper's on the case, guys. CNN's getting right to the bottom of it. All right, and our last video today pertaining to the wildfires is one from a local. It's a Democracy Now! Interview, so hold your popcorn there, Davey. Go ahead and get yourself some. And then a little preview of what we're going to be doing tomorrow, a special event happening tomorrow on the News Underground. We're going to be watching a very special documentary that's related to what we see in front of us right now. And I'll be telling you that after this interview. So let's get into it.
Now.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We continue to look at the catastrophic wildfires in Maui. We turn to Kaniela Singh, who is the national director of the Green New Deal Network. Ing is a 7th-generation native Hawaiian from Maui. I spoke to him on Thursday night, asking him to talk about what's happened to Maui and the historical significance of Lahaina town.
Sure. First off, thank you for having me and centering this issue. I will preface by saying that I've been really busy, but when I'm not doing these interviews, I just tend to break down. These are really somber times. I was born and raised in Maui. I'm Kanaka Maoli, native Hawaiian, come from 7 generations, and our island is on fire. Our most historic town was set ablaze by wildfires. Hundreds of people have been evacuated and hospitalized. The death toll is climbing, and people are searching for loved ones right now. So Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Joe Manchin, oil companies, and anyone in power who denies climate change, to me, are the arsonists here, and we're living the climate emergency.
It would be nice to throw a little shade at the neoliberal corporatists who enable the top 10. I mean, because who's polluting the most? There's 10 corporations that are polluting the most than any individual or other entity on planet Earth, and neoliberals happily take their money. So, I mean, call them out, but can we throw at least one, shade beam towards the neoliberal corporatist enablers? Please? He said Manchin. All right. Yeah, all right. I'll take it.
So it is sad times right now. It's heartening to see the community come together. and deliver goods to the families in needs. Fundraising has been incredible for the direct relief, but what I'm wondering personally is once the recovery efforts start to unfold and the cameras are gone, who's going to be left, more powerful or less powerful? Are people still going to be paying attention when the recovery work is going to last for years? And is that going to make community members stronger, or is it going to make the people who have mismanaged the land and water and created the conditions for these fires to happen even more powerful? And that's what we're focused on at Green New Deal Network right now.
Peniela, can you talk about specifically...
Is she at the dentist or something? What is going on?
The friends, the family, what has happened to those that have been devastated by the fires, particularly in Lahaina? Can you tell us some of those escape stories, some of what has taken place with the fires so suddenly wiping out this historic city? And then talk about the historic nature of Lahaina as the capital of the Hawaiian kingdom and what that means.
Book Nook. It looks nice.
We're a tropical island here on Maui. We're not supposed to have wildfires. This came as a shock to everyone. There's not enough firefighters here. We can't ship them over from the next state. We're an island. So everyone right now is feeling a bit overwhelmed. As it occurred, we saw community members jumping into the ocean, with nowhere else to go, just floating and watching their homes being reduced into ashes. The death toll went from 6 to 36 all of a sudden, and there are still firefighters, Red Cross members out there searching for our loved ones. It was apocalyptic. The scene was something that you would only see in a movie. But the reality is, like, this is becoming quite the norm now, and it will become more so in the future. Lahaina town is actually, it's often characterized as a tourist town, but the people who live there, which should be the focus, tend to be some of the most rooted Native Hawaiians that I've ever met.
So
They're
true.
the types of their families from generations.
You'd have to go there to know this, but yeah, it's 100% true. Like you go a couple steps away from the resort hotels, and it's all locals.
Ago created aquaculture, which like the West is only kind of learning about now. I used to work with them to figure out better ways that NOAA could manage like fisheries. They're really the keepers of the ancestral knowledge, and some of their most of the folks that are evacuated are like Kanaka Maoli or other like immigrant folks, and my heart goes out to those families.
When you say it's a tourist town, that's because it's historic. So talk about what that means. Give us a history lesson about Hawaii and about Maui, and how it relates to the mainland United States, even how it became a part of the United States.
All right, I'll allow it.
Sure. So Lahaina town was a thriving center of Hawaii. It was like the heart of Hawaii before, not just statehood, but before Hawaii was even a territory of the United States. So if you start from one end of Front Street and walk to the other, it's like a Disneyland ride through the colonial timeline of capitalism in Hawaii, starting from royalty, going to whaling, sandalwood, sugar and pineapple, tourism to luxury. And to me, the fire is a tragic symbol of this trajectory's terminal point, like where it all ends up if you continue down this mode of extraction as a way to live. But it's also like it also contains the most deep and durable relics of our history of resistance, the museums, the architecture, the infrastructure, the banyan tree, the oldest and largest in the United States, which just burnt, 150 years old this year. It includes all that, but also just the fact of how slow it was to develop is a testament to the people-powered, usually native-led resistance that each industry faced along the way.
You refer to the
bag,
raging wildfires as a result of colonial greed. Explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's two facets to this.
Yeah, and look, this is no joke. This isn't some liberal, like, you know, oh, they won't shut up about this. This is legitimate. The United States just took Hawaii in the most colonial sense imaginable. Like, there's no other way to put it. They just took it because they were bigger and stronger, and the United States needed it. So it happened well after. It happened way after, you know, the Civil War and all this other stuff. So it's a legitimate question and concern.
First is climate change. The National Weather Service says the cause of this fire was a downed power line and the spread because of hurricane force winds, and the spread was caused by dry vegetation and low humidity. Those are all functions of climate change. This isn't disputable. This isn't political. It's unfortunately, it has become politicized, but it's a matter of fact. Climate pollution, corporate polluters that set a blanket of pollution in the air that is overheating our planet caused the conditions that led to this fire. In addition, there's mismanagement of land. The original Big Five oligarchy in Hawaii, missionary families that took over our economy and government, they continue on today as some of our largest political donors and landowners and corporations. They've been grabbing land and diverting water away from this area for a very long time now, for generations. And Lahaina was actually a wetland. You could take like Viola Church, you could have boats circulating the church back in the day. But, you know, because they needed water for their corporate ventures like golf courses and hotels and monocropping, that has ended. So the natural form of Lahaina would have never caught on fire. These disasters are anything but natural. So yes, colonial greed in the fact that they caused the pollution that warmed our planet and set hurricanes like this to become the norm, and the gross mismanagement of our land and water, which the Green New Deal actually is about returning both, both mitigating climate change, building resilience, but also returning the stewardship of land and water to the people.
Can you talk about the dry land right now? I mean, you have Hurricane Dora hundreds of miles away. The wind was intense. But the drought that existed, that relationship to climate change.
Yeah, that's right. So growing up on this island, we saw maybe one or two fires, and they're very contained when things got to this drought factor. It's never been anything close to this. This shocked even like the climate scientists that I've worked with over the years were shocked by this fire. And a lot of it has to do with these dry conditions. Growing up, my dad would drive us to church and he'd point out to the sugarcane and he'd say, when you're my age, all the sugarcane would be gone. And I was like, okay, sure. It's such an essential part of Maui. But he was right. The sugar is gone. And the reason why is because one of these Big Five oligarchical corporations that I spoke of knew that the sugar wasn't profitable, but they continued monocropping most of the island in order to get some tax breaks for agriculture. Now, I grew up in a community.
And for folks who don't know, monocropping is really bad because you want your soil to be healthy, and you need to refresh and there needs to be nutrients put back into the soil. You don't want to grow the same crop over and over and over again in the same soil, extracting all those nutrients, because what eventually happens is you ruin the land. The land actually becomes infertile and incapable of farming properly. And there's also other issues with erosion. You can get dust problems. You can get major dust issues with land that's been monocropped and then abandoned, and then it turns into a big dust field, and then now all of a sudden you got an arid desert next to your little home there. So for those who don't know what monocropping is, it's a damn good way to ruin healthy soil, is what it is.
where it would rain cane ash on us, and it was like fun. I didn't realize we were all getting asthma. We're an environmental justice community. But there were people that fought against the cane burning, and the corporation ended up blaming the activists for the sugar shutting down, pitting the union workers against the community. The result now is just like a fallow, really dry land across the whole central valley of our island. And really, if community members and union members were to unite and have been organized years ago, we could have had a much different future. And that's still something that I think we should continue working to build, is that labor and environmental unity.
Yeah, so what it would take is the government would have to go to these areas that have been monocropped, and actually what you do is, what is the name? There's a term for it in farming where you intentionally grow a crop that you're not going to harvest. You grow it, you grow it, and then you till it. You till that into the soil immediately, and that helps strengthen the soil. So you do that a couple times. You plant a field of something, you let it grow to where however much it can grow, and then you till that back into the soil, and you do that for several cycles, and then soon you'll start getting fertile soil that is holding together better. That is, and if you're not going to plant a crop on it, at least it'll have grass, which helps with that, dust situation, keeps the soil in place. Welcome back, John Axel. Thank you for coming back.
Can you talk about the April survey?
Okay, that's all I got from this Democracy Now! Interview. Sorry, folks, I do need to move on to our next segment. So, no disrespect to the Hawaiian folks and this wonderful person here, but real quick, I wanted to give you just a quick preview of what we're going to be watching tomorrow. It is Naomi Klein's amazing book, The Shock Doctrine, and the documentary that was based off it. And this is what we see in the Shock Doctrine is exactly the pattern that we're going to cover crop. That's the name of it. Thank you, Rebel Phoenix. But the Shock Doctrine is going to be employed in Hawaii, in Maui. We're going to see corporations and oligarchs come into Hawaii. They're literally already doing it. Like I said, literally calling people already, victims. You're like, you just got out of the hospital for smoke inhalation. You got 600 missed phone calls from from some real estate speculator that wants to buy your plot of land. So we're seeing the Shock Doctrine already employed in Hawaii, but over in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see it fully employed. And just like as it always is, it's the poor and local people that are going to suffer. So let's go ahead and watch this trailer real quick for the Shock Doctrine.
What I'm trying to do in the Shock Doctrine is tell an alternative history.
Taking a look at your link, John.
The economic chaos that we're seeing right now on Wall Street stems from many factors, of course, but among them are the ideas of Milton Friedman.
Friedman was a member of a group called the Mont Pelerin Society, but over the last 30 years, their ideas have become the dominant economic doctrine.
Only a crisis, actual or perceived, produces real change.
People had to be terrorized into accepting these economic policies. More than 13,000 opponents were arrested and imprisoned. Many were tortured. These techniques were not used just on soldiers or terrorists. They were used on anyone who opposed the free market economic policies of the regime.
Friedman had promised that capitalism and freedom went hand in hand.
What I'm describing now is a plan and a hope for the long term. The march of freedom and democracy, which will leave Marxism, Leninism on the ash heap of history as it has left other tyrannies which stifle the freedom and muzzle the self-expression of the people.
The free market came to Russia. There was chaos. It was all shock, no therapy.
This will be a monumental struggle of good versus evil.
been sold a fairy tale.
There you go, folks. A little preview of what we're going to enjoy tomorrow on tomorrow's Sunday documentary streams. Make sure you check it out at the News Underground. And thank you. There you go, YouTube. That is our Hawaii/wildfire coverage. The world's on fire. The way to fix it. Look, don't feel nihilistic. Don't feel cynical. Don't feel hopeless. Okay, because there is a way to fix this, and that is hold our politicians and leaders accountable. When a scientist or a body that is researching something, you know, an Aaron Brockovich comes along and tells us there's a glaring problem, your leaders are not doing what they're supposed to. I mean, you'll have situations where politicians will do a special commission and, you know, have and pay for a study to be done on a specific problem, and then, you know, so that they can get an extra couple years to not have to fix the problem. The study comes back and says, yep, there's a problem, you're going to need to fix it, and then they don't fix it. So we see that happen in the United States. We see that happening in Canada. We see that happening everywhere. And yes, we do need to hold them accountable, and we don't need to know specifically what, you know, they're in charge of to be holding them accountable. Because when we start holding them accountable, they start holding each other accountable. So, you know, don't feel hopeless. There is a way to fix this. It's, you know, it's focusing on local government, participating in your government. I have a simple three-step program that you can follow if you're not quite sure. It's really quite simple. Listen up, inform yourself, join a progressive political organization in your area. There's plenty. I'm sure there's plenty more cropping up in Maui now. And then 3, you got to put in the work, not just voting, but, you know, ask yourself, well, you know, could I donate some money? Could I donate some time? What am I doing for the movement, right? And honestly, if 20% of the population starts following my 3-step program, these systemic political problems will start going away, because we need to lean on and depend on democracy to fix our problems, not a cult of personality and not cyclical magic thinking of just, well, eventually things will get better. We need to take some responsibility and have some agency in creating societal change, right? It's important. We got to be good citizens. So thank you, YouTube. Moving on to our next segment, the U.S.